Hey everyone. All right, welcome to the space. Welcome, Pisces Ascendant. Now, I'd like to give the same little spiel for all of it so that we know what's going on. I will probably be using some traditional astrology. I also would like to incorporate my own creative expression of what I see. But foundationally speaking, we're going off of this, what I like to call the new old map or old new map of ancient astrology, where Taurus is the ascendant. Taurus is the beginning of the zodiac. Because in truth, I don't know, and I'm still trying to figure out whether the age of what have you is actually happening, because that would mean that the age of, say, Aquarius would be, the Aquarius is the ascendant, right? So, but that's only accountable according to the supposed wobble that we don't have on Earth. So it's just interesting to think about. All right, here we go. Pisces Ascendant. Dun, 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 dun. So your first house ruled by Jupiter. You may be very blessed in this life, very sensitive in this life. You could be sort of bigger, like if you're a woman, you're a little bustier, you got a bum on you, you know what I mean? You're probably a little hippie. Like a man is probably a little bit more wide-shouldered. You probably have bigger feet too than for your size. It'd be maybe like slightly in proportionate, or you might even feel insecure about that, but you shouldn't, because you probably have really beautiful feet. Right? You don't need to go get a pedicure 3 times a week or whatever. Something like that. Let's see here. You probably know that you're smart. You may actually see yourself a little bit smarter than you are in certain ways. Like you could be a little stubborn, where you're like, yeah, I already know that. Like there's just a little bit of it's your inner child that wants to like prove something. Like even when you're a kid, there was something in your eyes where it's like you knew something before you were supposed to. You know what I mean? Like you understood things. You would say things. The way that you could look at life and like what was around you, you could understand it sort of like an adult. But that was probably also kind of challenging as a child, because I'm sure that then adults ended up talking to you about things that were like adult topics versus maybe kid topics. Maybe this could also be where like your parents talk to you about like sex like really, really early, or you were just exposed to a lot of things really early on. Like it was normal, and so you play off these things that would actually be seen as sort of inappropriate as a normalcy. Just a second, let me grab something. One second, Pisces. I know, patience. Okay. Let's see here. You probably have a very pretty voice. You may even sing. You may like to sing. You may also say things that are like you'll talk nice to a person's face, but behind their back, it would be a different story. And I see that it's very important not to do that, because, well, I see God's always listening. Your heart space is always listening too. So I see it's very important to realize that it's okay to have a hard conversation. Like, you can say the thing that needs to be said with love, even if you're upset. Okay? I see that your mother probably did and does talk to you about things that are completely inappropriate. Like, so inappropriate. But again, you may see it as something normal. I see that you love your father very much here. You're like, it's almost as if where you would be like a daughter wife, or like a son husband, you know, like you, um, your father could also be the feminine in the situation. Like, if you grew up with your mom and your dad was sort of feminine. Your dad was sort of like, your mom was very much a mom, but you there's something really emotionally tight with the dad. You probably knew him in a previous life. Um, you need to be in a relationship with someone who is able to digest who you are and what you say, right? They have to be able to, like, pick your brain without you completely expressing it, because sometimes, again, you'll put on this like sweet face when that's not actually how you feel. And your relationships are going to, your one-on-one partnerships and all the conversations that you have, those are meant to teach you how to communicate. And again, how to communicate. These numbers are throwing me off. One sec. Hopefully this is dark enough. 1 second, please. Not quite dark enough. Weird sound, huh? Okay. You may have to pay debts in love, too. Um, oh, I see. You could also love your siblings, have like a love-hate relationship with your siblings, too, here. I see it's very important to be honest. And could potentially have sort of a love is a battlefield kind of mentality with this Pisces Ascendant. Love is a battlefield. Um, could kind of have like a heavy heart here. Like, there are definitely things that you needed, debts that you needed to pay in this life that were heavy on the heart. You know, they tested your heart. They tested your confidence. It tested your fortitude. You know what I mean? That's what it was for, is to like empower you and to help you stand up straight, right? Not be like a slinky fish or something, but like you stand up straight, right? So that you can be an upstanding person for the community, for the collective, for your friends, right? Your social groups and things. Like I see you're more of a leader than I think that you are. And I actually see sacrificing your time for uh, giving to those in need. I see particularly working with the handicap, physical, working with the handicap. It is that is very helpful to your karma. Okay. It also makes you feel stronger as a person, not because you're doing it for yourself to make yourself ultimately stronger, but you know that that's something, it'll reinforce this back in you, right? And all the opportunities that this life grants us, right? And that's important to remember, to appreciate, right? My fucking dog. You could sort of have fights with, I feel like you might fight a traditional, you could fight God a little bit here. This could go back to where you think that you know something, but you don't. Like maybe you sort of stop yourself stubbornly, like, ah, yeah, I don't need to get more into that. But if you got more into it, you would actually realize that you are perhaps a little bit more traditional than you think that you are. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with rules. Uh, I see again, you're a lifelong friend. Um, you are probably pretty smart here. I feel like most of you don't need glasses either. You have really strong, like, you got probably 20/20 vision. Um, could end up working for like a bigger company. Um, or many jobs. You may have many jobs. You probably have jobs where you stand on your feet. Um, some of you could be bartenders, like work in the like restaurant industry. Uh, the food industry, right? Service industry, I guess, in a sense, but I see it more in a kind of casual way. Somehow or another, there's food and things like that involved. You definitely, I think you do have to stand up for work, most of you. And so it's hard on like your back, your thighs, things like this, ankles. It's like there's weight there, so you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, elevating your feet if you do. If you do end up sitting for some reason, you know you're sitting all day, you don't want to be sitting in a bad position. You want to be comfort, right? I forget what that's called, but where it's everything's all geometrically in its position, right? If you need to, obviously get up every 15 minutes if you can and stretch, touch your toes, whatever, reach your arms up, wiggle your ankles around, make sure if your chair is for some reason it's interesting, it's like, because doing the same thing over and over and over again at the wrong height can really affect your body. It can really affect your body, so you'd want to pay attention to those. um second. You really are, you're like a ride or die friend, aren't you? But if they fuck around or talk shit about your mom or your dad, you're over it. You wouldn't deal with anybody like that. Like you would, if someone talks shit about your family, it doesn't matter if they were your best friend. If they said something about your family, against your family, I think you would shun them. You may also have a position where you may see that your family could do no wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like it could be possibly to a fault. I don't remember if we've already said this. You could carry some of your mother's nervousness emotionally. Like you carried in your head, like that energy still within you, which makes it a little bit hard to connect to you could have a natural desire to really desire children also. But I see that it's important to not lay your self-value upon that. Because there will be big lessons that come with it either way. You could end up also becoming a single parent here. I mean, of course, it would depend on other aspects, but I kind of see that. Could also be where you kind of have to parent your parents. That could be a part of it. Little confusion. What did we say? Like daughter, wife, or things like that. It's a little mixed up. I see it's very important to be open to what needs to change here. Because however the steps that you take, the first steps that you take they're like a big step, right? Once you start doing something new. And I see that you don't give up very easily. And so I see it's very important what you're fighting for, what you're driven towards. And is it actually for your higher good? Do you know what it's for? Like, what is the desire that pushes it really? Like, is it for God? Is it for you? What is it for? Interesting. Pisces Ascendant. Just a second. See if I see anything. This one's a little bit shorter. I see it's okay for you to communicate, like, if you're in like an in-between position where like, you know that you love God, but you also feel like there's, some sort of struggle where like, you know that there's a creator, but then you know that there are people who are like using the creator or their creator as an excuse to do something negative. Like there's still some sort of push and pull to what it is. Again, I heard you may be a little bit more traditional than you realize that you are. And it's okay to pick something if you want to. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you have to stick with that ultimately, but like be in something, like maybe this is also a position where like you would jump from like, oh, I'm Christian, and then like, oh, I'm Protestant, or like, oh, I'm Buddhist, and but you actually do get into it. That'd be interesting. I know a few people's parents like that. That's fascinating. Um, huh. So I guess if that's the case, it's very important if you have children and you're doing that to explain what it is that's going on, because that could very much affect them later, and they're like end up becoming an alcoholic because they, not because you told them that, but just because like there's some sort of, or you do to like try to compensate for something. Fascinating. I see, just like Taurus Ascendant, I actually just spun it to see where we landed this time. They were first, you're second. Um, you do have to learn how to love your enemies in a way. Like, like you shine your heart, love out at the world. So if there's an enemy there, well, then they get some of that heart space love because that's where you're coming from, right? Not that you're ultimately looking for like who your enemies are and all this. I mean, you want to be aware, don't be delusional, right, about what's going on. And like, at least at this point in life, like everybody, it's like, of course you got to be a little bit aware of, use your brain, use your eyes, use your head about what it is that's going on, and, you know, express yourself. And I see, have those difficult conversations if you need to. Um, it's actually like very helpful for digestion too. Like you'd probably need to be with someone who's really smart, who's very intellectually stimulating. I heard they may be kind of plain, but it's stimulating, because I think maybe with home too was a little, like we talked about earlier, it's like too, almost a little too stimulating in certain kinds of ways. And so there's something where like, instead of it being so action oriented, there's something that's kind of calm and you're just having a conversation about it, you know. So again, this like loving space can come back into this peace, and you're like, okay, that happened. Why did that happen? And you're looking at it really logically, and you're looking at it really lovingly, and you're looking at it, if the shoe is on the other foot, or if you were in that other person's shoes, right? Instead of just being like, well, you're not my friend, like you did this and that, so you're fucking done. Not like that, no, because that'll block you from having the emotional fulfillment that you want in this life and feeling at home in your own body, okay? I do see most of you having many jobs. Um, you'll probably fight going to school also. You love it and you hate it, school. Something about maybe the structure of it isn't, because you have Jupiter, right, ruling your first house of Pisces. It's like, it wants to be grounded, but it also wants to be free and infinite. And, it's good to know what reality is here and what is like vacation, you know? And make sure that you're not a shit talker here. Like, no gossiping. It wouldn't do you any good to gossip. It'd be better to have the conversation straight in the face so that you can get it out of the way before anything bubbled up too much, right? You felt one little bubble, you said something. Big deal. When you're at that stage, it doesn't matter. You know, the longer that you hold it in, what happens? Then it just, everything, the whole ocean starts to boil. It's like, and then things evaporate and you disappear, right? So it's very important to just have those little conversations when you're having them. I do see that you love your mother very much. You probably talk to your father more about other things, like more heady kind of stuff. Your mom's like sort of lovey, you'd be like, oh, I love you, mom, or whatever. But the dad's like, you'll talk about intellect, you'll get on this deeper, like heady level. I do see if you have children, you love them very, very much. You probably, if you're a woman, you probably love breastfeeding. You're like, oh my God, I want to do that. Uh, what is that called? Like a wet nurse or something? Maybe my wet nurses are Pisces Ascendant. It'd be interesting to find out. Um, I do see a lot of people that you love could you know, try not to be too much in the Pat Benatar, love is a battlefield. And if you do feel like that, I feel like you need to have, this would actually benefit you in this position to also go see a counselor. Not necessarily like long term, but I just see like if you ever get to a point where you're a little bit too stuck and like you've reached out to friends, you've talked to your family, you're talking to your whatever, you're watching YouTube videos, you're reading your heart, this and that, and you just can't seem to get to a place. I think going to a counselor for a short period of time could actually be really beneficial for this placement. Some sort of counselor that could help enlighten you to something that you can't quite see, okay? Be very beneficial to you, actually expand you as a person and make you feel more grounded, right? It's, the water's not over your head, then you can stand up and your feet touch the bottom of the ocean, right? Bottom of the water. It probably would take you a long time to sort of digest exes also. Like you could say like, oh yeah, I'm over that. I don't love the person anymore. I'm over this. I'm over that. Da, 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 da. You'd say it, but deep down, you don't, that is not the same thing. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, this kind of back and forth. So you have to say it, Pisces. But not aggressively, not waiting till it's so much that it comes out, squirting out the sides. It's just, again, there's a little bubble and just be like, hey, could you not do that anymore? It really, I don't want you to get hurt. Whatever, instead of being like, quit fucking doing that. Whatever the situation is. I see eventually you'll change your ways with God. I think by the time most of you are at you're later in your life, especially as you become closer and closer to your own mortality and death and things like this, accepting to it, I think you may become more traditional in your religious take on things. I also see that some of you could like regret not going to school, so it'd be very beneficial if you have, or you've, work that out if you can, especially if you're younger, right? Work towards that, put that energy in just to get it, not to exactly get it out of the way, but so that you don't have any regrets later. I think that's also why you may become religious, is so that you feel better about something, but whatever floats your boat, because there is a really great community within any circle. You just have to figure out what circles you want to actually be in. Pisces Ascendant. Definitely many, many jobs. Definitely standing on your feet, most likely. Loyal friend to the end, right? Almost to a fault sometimes. I do see it's very important for you to learn your lesson, though. Use your higher mind with things. I see, don't repeat the mistakes of your father. I heard no need to mirror the unnecessary. Fascinating. I just became inspired to do these this evening, so I hope you enjoyed that, Pisces Ascendant. Cool. All right, well, take care of yourself. I hope you enjoyed this. And thanks for being here. See you later. Peace.